English comedian, writer, actor, and activist Russell Brand was recently accused by numerous women of a variety of allegations including assault, manipulative relationship behavior, and other sexual allegations. Brand, a man known for his flamboyant and loquacious behavior and his heterodox opinions on a litany of political topics, denied all allegations of non-consensual sexual behavior.
I've received 2 extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. As I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well.
In the post Time's Up and Believe Women's Social Environment, these allegations have reawakened debates about due process of law, justice, punishment, the production of truth values in relation to such allegations, and government/corporate control over what information is true and what is not true. In this video, I'm not going to attempt to adjudicate the mostly anonymous claims against Brand, but I will attempt to answer the above questions with a simple query. How much process is due Russell Brand by the state, by the public at large, by individuals on the internet, and by private corporations? Also, if you like this video, please consider giving a super thanks or donating directly to the channel. YouTube increasingly has a habit of demonetizing or limiting ads on videos like this using their horrible censorship trolls, so any help is greatly appreciated. In September of 2023, several news outlets, including the Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4's Dispatches, published the allegations of at least 4 or 5 women. All of the allegations are from events prior to at least 10 years ago. Another anonymous woman in New York recently filed a civil suit against Brand for allegedly assaulting her on the set of the 2011 movie Arthur. At least 3 of these women have remained anonymous, while one, Jordan Martin, wrote a book detailing their relationship back in 2014. All of the allegations date from at least over a decade ago. No criminal charges have been filed against Brand, though the Thames Valley Police Station in southeast England have opened allegations on Brand regarding allegations of stalking in 2018. And the Metropolitan Police of London have stated they've opened an investigation regarding a number of sexual offenses. The Metropolitan Police didn't specifically say they were investigating Brand, but they were certainly thinking it very loudly. Of course, Brand is innocent until proven guilty of any crimes in a court of law, and mere investigations are not the same as convictions. And, you know, the police be lying all the time, and they're super sus in general. Predictably, those who oppose Russell Brand's beliefs have condemned him as a rapist and sexual predator who deserves to be immediately canceled and expelled from society for all time. Brand's agent dropped him as a client. YouTube demonetized all of Brand's videos on all of his different YouTube accounts, preventing him from making any money off of them, though YouTube still generates revenue for themselves off of his work. And finally, the BBC has also removed some content that includes him from, again, like the 2000s. On the other side, there are those who agree with Brand's heterodox belief systems, or those who are skeptical of sexual assault allegations, especially anonymous ones, who have rushed to Brand's defense. Many have stated this is a coordinated effort by the establishment to silence a popular voice with anti-establishment beliefs. Others have said we must suspend judgment until after a judicial inquiry has occurred, because the traditional understanding of justice is that prior to punishing someone, you must conduct some type of fair process where accused and accuser can speak their truth. We are reassured that the purest truth regarding this matter, the truth in and of itself, can only be found within the framework of due process of law. These apologists would like to have us believe that the judicial system is where we can find the highest form of truth waiting to be discovered, and the presumption of innocence renders facts in a state of epistemic flux until they've been put to the test of the judicial inquiry. They seek an adversarial method, a process whereby accusations are allowed to be presented by known accusers, and the accused is allowed a chance to refute them. This is an arena where different truths battle it out for supremacy. This is called a critical attitude, where we demand tests of accusations and are ready to accept refutation if the evidence supports it. The judicial inquiry comes from, spoiler alert, the judicial system. The judicial system is the arm of the state that adjudicates wrongs between different people. The judiciary exists because society expects a certain standard, a process whereby grievances can be assigned as legitimate or not, and this process is the judicial system. And honestly, if we didn't have such a system, we would probably devolve into a free-for-all where if you called my mama a hoe or stole my heifer, I'd gather all the king's horses and all the king's men and come curb stomp the shit out of you. French philosopher Michel Foucault described the function of judicial practices as, quote, the manner in which wrongs and responsibilities are settled between men, the mode by which society conceived and defined the way men could be judged in terms of wrongs committed, the way in which compensation for some actions and punishment for others were imposed on specific individuals. Society relies on judicial techniques to answer the questions: who did what, under what circumstances, and at what moment. So, what did Russell Brand and his accusers do? Under what circumstances? And at what moments did these things occur? None of us were there when these accusations allegedly occurred. These are the he said, she said incidents, where we have two sets of subjective truths claiming the legitimacy of objectivity. The events which occurred are no longer actual. The judicial inquiry, this privileged method that allegedly guarantees the best method of truth acquisition, was invented precisely as an attempt to extend the actuality of the no longer occurring offense to our present time, so it can be offered to the gaze, to knowledge, to objectivity, as if the event were still present. The judicial inquiry requires those who may be in the know of an event long past, Brand, his anonymous accusers, other people familiar with these events and relationships, to swear fealty to the truth and submit their knowledge to the test, so that we may all look on at what allegedly occurred. I swear, before God, the Holy Spirit, and the blood of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph Stalin, that I will spill all the tea and leave no crumbs behind. Foucault says the inquiry is a reactualization of what had transpired, making it present, tangible, immediate, and true, as if one had witnessed it themselves. Now, due process of law only applies to the government's actions towards judicial subjects, not the actions and the beliefs of individuals or society at large. Due process is answering the question: how much process is due by the state in order to determine with accuracy whether 1. A judicial subject is liable for an action, and 2. If liable, what punishment is the government permitted to impose on said subject? The various methods, techniques, and rules that accompany a trial are the very process due to any subject threatened by the government. If the subject is indigent, the government must provide an attorney at no charge. If the subject claims to be mentally unfit, the government must perform tests to determine this. If the subject invokes their right to a trial by jury, the government must assemble a jury of impartial peers. If the subject chooses to remain silent, the government cannot compel them to speak. The stakes in a criminal trial are incredibly high. The state can literally unalive you, which in the lingo of the kids these days is not clutch, no cap. Therefore, it stands to reason that the government must be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt whether a person is guilty or not. In most of the West, due process of law guarantees a minimum of 3 things occur before the government can infringe upon a judicial subject's right to life, liberty, and property. 1. You are given notice of the charges that are being levied against you. 2. You have the opportunity to rebut those charges. And 3. Having some sort of neutral decision maker to hear the charges and make whatever ruling is appropriate, like a jury and a judge. In the judicial system, due process is the magic armor of legitimacy that enshrouds the trial, allowing a theoretical form of truth to develop. Apologists decry this era of Me Too, where alleged abusers are tried, convicted, and executed not by the cold, disaffected, almost sterile judgments of the judicial system, but by the barbarous, irrational public body itself. The emperor has no clothes on with the death of due process. Specters of rabid lynch mobs, trial by media or trial by public opinion, are conjured to scare young men.
It's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of. This is a very difficult time. But somebody could accuse you of something and you're automatically guilty. But in this realm, you are truly guilty until proven innocent.
But again, due process of law only applies to the government's actions towards you, not the actions or beliefs of individuals or society at large. According to Andrea Corcio, a law professor at the Georgia State University, quote, "Due process does not mean you have the right to be believed, just that you have the right to be heard. Whether people like it or not, there is no constitutional protection against a bad reputation." Also, some of the allegations against Brand are not technically criminal, just what we would consider immoral. If a judicial inquiry is the only way to gain the purest truth about an event, do these allegations just remain in a state of epistemic limbo unless a civil suit occurs? No! Just as I don't need a judicial inquiry to determine whether Russell Brand is an asshole or not, he's literally admitted to being one on multiple occasions, or whether he has political beliefs that are harmful or not. Philosopher Lewis Waller, who runs the YouTube channel Then and Now, stated on Twitter, quote, "Trial by media is a vacuous phrase. If you make a living online, people are going to comment on you. It might have excesses and get ugly, but it's inevitable. The cognitive dissonance it takes to criticize it while also claiming to be a warrior for free speech is something. Criminal trial is not the only kind of trial. People want to determine other things too. Should a person be employed by the media? How should it be reported on? What are others' positions on it? It's the marketplace of ideas, people, or better yet, the carnival of ideas." Trial by media, or trial by public opinion, are just one of the many methods used by society to determine who did what, under what circumstances, and at what time. When we're talking about due process in the societal sense, we're not talking about criminal liability, but societal liability. According to Shira Scheindlin, former United States District Judge, quote, "The question is whether, given the quality of the allegations, the person against whom the allegations have been made should remain in the position of trust, confidence, and responsibility which he, and it usually is a he, currently holds." The process due Russell Brand by internet platforms that host and make money off of his videos, the broadcast networks that show his movies, TV, and television specials, and the public at large is far smaller than the process due to the state. If parts of society don't want to support Brand, it's because there was a judgment call to be made. A judgment call that's not burdened with a high level of due process. Still though, Brand apologists will insist we follow the ideals of due process of law, of the judicial inquiry. We say don't rush to judgment because one should be presumed innocence. Due process in the societal sense looks to due process of law as an ideal of the best ways to determine any allegations put forth by alleged victims. This is the ideal way to get to the purest truth, the truth in and of itself, or so they say. While due process of law does facilitate a kind of truth production, these truths may obfuscate what actually occurred. In some instances, truth values invented at court can change several times, or, as is much more common, the facts carry multiple truth values that contradict each other, but compete over which perspective is most dominant. In the surviving R. Kelly docuseries, a white juror from R. Kelly's 2008 trial revealed that despite several black women, like Lisa Van Allen, testifying to the sexual abuse of minors by Kelly, the juror didn't like the way she looked or dressed, so he disregarded everything he said.
I just didn't believe them, the woman. I know it sounds ridiculous, the way they dress, the way they act. I didn't like them. I voted again. I disregarded all what they said.
This is an instance where Van Allen's facts were shrouded by forms of racism and sexism. We can also look at the O.J. Simpson trial, where he was acquitted at his criminal trial but found liable in his civil trial. Which truth should we rely on, especially when the burden of proof is much higher in a criminal trial than it is a civil trial? There is the trial against the Central Park Five, where they were found guilty at the criminal trial, only to be completely exonerated years later. There are innumerable other examples where it's clear in retrospect that the judicial system got it horribly wrong. Even the amount of money one has can go into whether a person is found guilty or not. Multi-millionaires like R. Kelly, O.J. Simpson, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Russell Brand, and others can afford the best possible lawyers. But if you're poor, you're likely to be given an overworked and underpaid public defender in your battle against the well-funded and very powerful state apparatus. Most jurisdictions in the United States still have cash bail, meaning that you must pay a ransom to get out of jail pre-trial despite the presumption of innocence. If you can't afford it, you rot in jail, as you lose your job, your housing, and your kids, not because you're guilty, but simply because you are what is scientifically referred to as poor as fuck. Many people in these situations will take a plea bargain, plead guilty to a crime they didn't commit just to get out of jail. This is hardly a system where pure truth can be found. Returning to Russell Brand, some of these allegations are not new. The allegations by Jordan Martin were made over a decade ago, and while she claims there was non-consensual acts done to her, she has not appeared to reach out to law enforcement to make it a criminal matter. Some of the other allegations are not even in question, meaning we don't actually need a judicial inquiry to determine the truth of the allegation. It's not in dispute that a 31-year-old Russell Brand engaged in a 3-month-long sexual relationship with a 16-year-old girl. The age of consent in the United Kingdom is 16, so this isn't a criminal activity, though the anonymous woman is now claiming she was forced or coerced into engaging in some sexual behavior. Regardless of criminality, most people in the West, including myself, seem opposed to sexual activity between adults and minors, with the exception of France, because of course France is the exception. Conservative political commentators Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, both of whom have heavily criticized the Me Too Believe Women movement, have spoken out saying they believe the anonymous allegations against Brand and are especially disgusted by his behavior with a minor regardless of the legality.
You had sex with a 16-year-old when you were 31. You spat in her mouth. You forced yourself on her. Could you please for a second stay open-minded to the possibility that the women are telling the truth? We don't need to so overcorrect from the Me Too movement that every woman gets completely disregarded and called a liar when she finds the guts to come forward and make an allegation. They may be telling the truth.
Honestly, there's many instances regarding the wrongs committed between men where we don't even need a judicial trial to adjudicate the truth. Take the fact that former US President George W. Bush literally raped and committed numerous war crimes against Iraq and a lot of other people under false pretenses. Or that former President Barack Obama raped and completely destabilized Libya, leading to the return of slavery in a country that was one of the most stable and had some of the highest standards of living on the African continent. Glenn Greenwald, who is one of the most consistent voices on the whole planet for due process, has rightfully blamed those presidents and their administrations for the war crimes that they committed. And he didn't need a judicial inquiry to find out the truth of these allegations. Let's say Brand did commit the alleged criminal allegations he's accused of. The allegations against Russell Brand, like all allegations, have their nuances. As was said, not all the allegations are new, and the newer allegations are all anonymous, though there appears to be some documentation like medical reports and text messages that back up these claims. All of the allegations come from a period prior to 2014. Brand has long admitted there was a period of his life where he was both a drug and sex addict, when he engaged in misogynistic and toxic behavior, though he denies all criminal allegations, and that he has spent the last decade trying to better himself in the way that he treats other people. And this is where I think it's important to ask the question: what is to be done with Russell Brand if he did indeed commit the allegations he's accused of? From a purely practical point, it makes perfect sense that he would not admit to anything criminal because it could open him up to both criminal and civil liability. It's also not clear here what the alleged accusers actually want done to Brand. The stories released about Brand were explicitly solicited and initiated by reporters, not the alleged victims themselves. And there has been this movement on the center-left, the very amalgam of people that are most influenced by the believed survivor's narrative, toward what is often called restorative justice. This movement has been seen as a counter-movement to the overly punitive mass incarceration system of the United States, a country with only 5% of the world population, but over 25% of the world's prison population. Except, this restorative justice never seems to apply to anyone accused of sex crimes. Also, if you've ever said anything vaguely racist or sexist in your entire life, you're basically canceled and considered persona non grata for the rest of your life, regardless of how much you apologized or how long ago the perceived social crime even occurred. If you want to hear an excellent critique of this type of cancellation, I highly recommend this video by anti-philosopher Counterpoints, where she details the philosophy behind cancel culture and its many flaws. In many cases, no forgiveness against those accused of sex crimes is kind of warranted. Abusers like R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and Brock Turner, that's right, Brock, we still haven't forgotten about you, have never admitted to doing anything wrong. Restorative justice is impossible unless the offending party is willing to admit that they actually did some wrong. But this isn't exactly the case with Brand. Yes, he hasn't admitted to any actual criminal wrongdoing, but at the very least he's admitted to some very unethical behavior, and appears, and I stress appears because I don't know what happens behind closed doors, to have spent the last decade trying to fundamentally change his behavior and the types of relationships he has. So at what point does forgiveness come into play for these type of offenses? Is your forgiveness being clouded by Brand's heterodox views? Is it being denied because you've essentialized individual discrete instances of immoral behavior into Brand's very existence, as if he is eternally this horrible person? What is it? Because I seriously, I don't know the answer for reals. And then there's YouTube. I have to return specifically to the way YouTube has handled this situation. YouTube demonetized his entire channel, but strangely did not delete his channel, meaning Google is still making bank off of Brand's work. Now I can already hear what some people are gonna say. Free speech only applies to government censorship, and Google is a private company. Well, companies like Google, Meta, Twitter, TikTok, etc. have more wealth and power than most nations at this point, and they literally don't give two shits about any of us. Now, I'm not a free speech absolutist. I think there are legitimate reasons to censor or deplatform people, but this really isn't one of them. YouTube, which has made what can scientifically be described as fat stacks of cash from Brand's videos, he literally has over 1 billion views, released a statement saying that its terms of service includes behavior that may have happened off-platform, no matter how long ago it occurred, which is kind of bonkers if you think about it. Why is Brand demonetized for his alleged past bad behavior, while the George W. Bush library and the Barack Obama library aren't, despite those presidents literally raping and destroying entire countries, and the libraries exist to defend the records of these presidents? This isn't the first time I've criticized YouTube and other social media platforms. Yes, they're private companies, and they're allowed to have standards of service about what content they allow on their platforms. But two problems arise here. One, there is no clear standard on how these terms of service are applied and whether they are applied fairly. They are written in such vague legalese that nearly identical incidents by some content creators are never punished, while others have their channels completely deleted with no explanation and often no recourse. From personal experience, when YouTube ad restricts or demonetizes a video, they never actually explain what specifically in the video violated their terms of service. And it's not clear what you would have to change in the video to get around their horrible censorship trolls. Chances are you aren't even dealing with a real person, but just some cold, soulish machine algorithm.
More machine now than man, twisted and evil.
I made a video earlier this year defending YouTuber Marcus Dibb, who goes by the handle The Offensive Tranny. Hey, that's how they self-identify, so don't get angry at me, who for seemingly no reason had his entire channel deleted. Now, I disagree with almost all of Dibb's beliefs, and only made this video to stand up for his free speech rights, Mr. Tranny was only able to get his page back because he has enough of a fan base, and people like me were willing to risk our own channels to stand up for him. The second problem is that platforms like YouTube are increasingly becoming the space for public discourse no different from the public square. They're so large and integrated into our digital daily lives that an argument could be made that they're almost a basic utility at this point. No different from the electric company and water company. No matter how horrible of a person you are, the electric and water company can't refuse you service unless you fail to pay. Just like no matter how horrible of a person you are, the government cannot infringe upon your rights to free speech. There's literally no law against being an asshole. Trust me, I know. And since this all happened, Russell Brand has continued to upload videos on YouTube, even though he's not making any money off of them. Now, Brand also has other platforms like Rumble and other ways of where he generates a lot of his money. But if I was him, I would delist every single video on his YouTube channels so that YouTube isn't still making money off of him while refusing to pay him. As I was finishing up this video, aforementioned philosopher Lewis Waller released his own video on Russell Brand. Waller's video focused on the spread of conspiracy theories, especially those spread by Russell Brand. Waller spends most of the video debunking a variety of conspiracy theories and basically calls Brand a delusional narcissist at one point. Waller uploaded the video to YouTube, waited a few days so YouTube's horrible censorship trolls could scour it looking for any content that might make advertisers clutch their pearls, and when no problems seemed to occur, he published the video. Within a day of it being posted, YouTube ad restricts Waller's video about debunking conspiracy theories because it claims the video spreads conspiracy theories. You literally can't make this shit up. Waller tried all the ways you go about getting your video reviewed, even taking to Twitter. YouTube allegedly reviewed the video again and maintained the ad restriction. They never actually tell him what in the video was so objectionable, and you can see here how even ad restrictions can destroy the reach of a video. So after this video, do go check out Then and Now's video and help him out too. But let me know what you think about this entire situation involving Russell Brand, cancel culture, due process, and corporate and government control over speech. Like, subscribe, stalk me on Instagram, leave your comments and the thoughts below, and like I said earlier, please consider becoming a patron member or donating directly to the channel. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down by YouTube, but who knows anymore? Thank you for watching, thank you to my patrons, and I'll see you the next time you make a wrong turn in one of my strange corners of thought. Bye.